Have you ever struggled to find or use your voice, or worried that the things that you have to say may not be taken seriously or may not even be believed, if for no other reason than because you probably look like me? Or being uncomfortable speaking up in the room again because you're the only one that looks like you in the room? I suffered, and I'll choose to use the word suffered, through that for many years within my corporate accounting career. But then I finally had a shift and I started to learn who I was and whose I was. And when that finally clicked, when that light bulb went off, as they say, I realized that how to speak up for myself, how to advocate for myself, how to use my voice. And it didn't matter whether or not it was accepted. It didn't matter what opinion someone had of it, as long as I spoke in truth, as long as I spoke and operated out of integrity, and as long as I continued to put God first in whatever it was that I did. And putting God first in whatever I did didn't necessarily mean that I had to start every conversation with, and the Lord said. But putting God first in everything that I did meant that I allowed God to tell me which way to go. I allowed God to tell me whether or not I needed to speak up. And when God tells you to speak up, you have that unction, that feeling inside of you to say something. And then you may have that fear, that flesh that tells you all the reasons why you're not qualified and why you should be quiet and why no one wants to hear what you have to say. But you have to let that spirit within you come out and move forward with courage, because that's what it is. It's not confidence, it's with courage. It takes courage to be able to say the things that really need to be said sometimes, especially when your opinion is not the popular opinion to whatever is happening in the room, in the group, in the team meeting. And so now I use those skills that I've learned to help other professionals understand how to speak up for themselves and do it in a way where they can walk away with their head held high, where they can say what they need to say and others can disagree, or maybe just honestly not even like what they have to say, but knowing that they said it in truth and integrity, that they're able to accept whatever that response may be. And so, in understanding how to advocate for yourself, and advocating for yourself is not just in a professional space. You have to do it at home, you have to do it at work, you have to do it everywhere, because everywhere you go, you have other people, you have other opinions. You always have someone who thinks what they have to say is more important, what they have to say is the right answer or the only answer. And so you're always in some sort of battle of struggling to use your voice and be heard. And if that's not your problem, then this video is not for you. Or is it? Because you may be the problem. Think about that. And so the idea is just to make sure that if you are the problem, then that you're taking the time to listen to others and give them a voice, give them a sounding board, and allowing them to be heard, giving them the space to be heard. But if you're the person that's struggling to do just that, then here are a few quick tips just to help you feel better and more confident, because as you continue to move forward and courage, you will build up that confidence. And so to continue to move forward and build up your confidence so that you do feel better and are more able and more quickly speaking up for yourself. And so the first thing is, have a plan in place. If you're in a meeting and you want to say something, start writing it down. You don't have to write verbatim, but jot down notes or keywords so that when it's time for you to say what you need to say, you have a guide right there. You don't get choked up. You don't forget certain points that you want to make. And you can refer to your notepad or whatever it is that you have in front of you, because you want to make sure that you've captured and said everything correctly. So write it down if you need to. And if it's a separate conversation or a one-on-one conversation for an upcoming meeting, do the same thing. Have your notes there. But be prepared to also know that just because you prepared, just because you speak eloquently, just because you said all the words the right way, doesn't mean that what you have to say will get a yes or will be accepted. And you have to be okay with knowing that. However, You do not have to be okay with not knowing why whatever you have to say is not being accepted and not being received by the other person. It doesn't matter what their position is. They can't just say no. Well, they can, but you don't have to just accept no. I'll say it that way. So what you should do is, if there's a no, if the question is, hey, I've been doing all of these things, I've gotten these awards, this acknowledgement, I've met these accomplishments and these goals, and I'm looking for an increase in my pay, and the answer is no, you have the right to ask why. What are the reasons for the no? And then once they give you whatever those reasons are, if it's something related to your performance, or and honestly, sometimes it could be something they've made up, but for whatever the reason is, if it's something related to your performance, all right, well then let's come up with a game plan so that I can be on track within the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever that time frame is, so that when we have this conversation again, the answer is yes. As a manager, as a leader, you should not get pushback in making that sort of request and making a request for someone to help me help us as a team. Help me to do what I need to do so that we all look good. And so, yes, help me come up with a plan. Can we sit down together? Can we work through a plan? It may not be right now today. I'll schedule some time on your calendar for next week. And we'll come together with a plan. I'll write down some things. You can write down some things that I could work on moving forward, so that when, again, we revisit this conversation, the answer is a yes. And even at that time, you can say, and when we do revisit that, not only is it a yes, but it's a yes for this amount. And go ahead and put that out there. If the answer is, oh, well, we just don't have the money, because that one will come up. But understand that anything anybody wants to do, they'll figure out a way to do it. It works the same way in corporate. I've seen the budgets. I've seen where the money may not have been there technically, but when the company wanted something to happen, they made it happen. They found the money. They moved it. They did whatever they needed to do. So saying it's not there isn't really a great reason. However, you may get that. And so if you get that one, then say, all right, well, I was asking for a 10% increase. How about 4% now, 6 months, another? And even with that, you can say, and let's get some milestones so that we can validate this I can't think of the word I want to say, but periodic, I'll say that for lack of a better term, so that we can validate this periodic increase that I'm receiving, so that after X amount of time, I have now received this increase that I've requested, and it's validated in the work that I was already doing, plus these additional projects or milestones that I've met within this time frame. Or nope, we don't have the money. Okay, well then I want to put a plan together in place so that when we have reviews in 6 months, when we talk about this again, even if it's the next year, when we have this conversation again, I've already met these milestones, so there's no question about it. And at that time, it may not just be a conversation about, and you can say this right now, and at that time, since we're waiting until next year, for example, then my request is for a promotion for this title at this rate, and lay it all out there. If you don't advocate for you, who will? If you don't speak up for you, who will? And so you have to make sure you learn how to do that, again, professionally and personally. And what does it look like in your personal life? The same thing. You want to have a conversation, make sure you write it on your phone if you have to. Have your notes somewhere so you can make sure you say whatever it is you need to say. But make sure that you give space, because sometimes we find it harder to do in our personal lives than our professional lives. Make sure you're giving each other space so that each person is being heard and saying what it is you have to say. And then come up with those same solutions, those same timelines, those same guidelines or goals. You want a new car, but your significant other may say, no, we can't afford that right now. Okay, well then let's put a plan together in place so that in 6 months, we can move forward with it. Or let's put a plan together in place, or you think maybe I'll change my mind about it. Okay, well then what's the time frame that makes you comfortable that we can move forward with this decision? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Whatever it is. So working together to put a plan in place. And when you do that, then they are now accountable. And it is your job to make sure that you not only hold them accountable, but keep yourself accountable as well. Be accountable to the things that you said you would do. to the things that you said you would accomplish and you would complete. If you said, well, if they said, I don't hear from you enough, I want to start hearing from you more often, then make it a point to catch up with them each week outside of a team environment to say, hey, these are some of the things that are going on. These are some of the things that we're working through, to let them see that you're serious about this transformation, to let them see that you're serious about this change. And then if you have a good manager or leader within your group, they're going to work with you to make sure you can get those things that you have earned and that you deserve. Because they're not doing you any type of privilege to pay you. You're working for your paycheck. So it's a partnership. You're doing a service, you're being paid for that service. So any organization that you work with is a partnership. And any organization that tries to get you to see it any other way may not be the best organization. Which, depending on the type of response that you get, you can then see, is this really the best place for me, or the best team for me, or the best manager, whatever it is, and understand then how you can navigate and maybe speak to others to get what it is that you need. Yes, you want to go through the normal hierarchy, but sometimes there are pit stops there. Well, then go around, go above. Because if you're truly with a great organization and you have come prepared, your work is probably already speaking for itself, number one. And so if you're able to say, you know what, I talked to my manager, they put up roadblocks, they weren't willing to work with me to put a game plan together, let me go to someone else who can help me. Let me go to either one of their peers or either whoever the next level up is and say, hey, I just wanted to have this conversation with you about these things. And again, having your plan together. And I thought you would be the one that could help me with this. And if they ask, and you don't have to go in, I tried asking them and it's not about throwing anybody under the bus. It's about getting what you need to get done. And they ask, hey, have you already talked to this? Yeah, we already talked about it. And I felt it would be better if I just came to you. You could say either because you're the one that ultimately makes the decision, or they told me that they're not the ones that make the decision, or they weren't able to help me at this time. And if they want you to go into details, go into details. But it's not about bashing anyone, about throwing anybody under the bus. It's about speaking up for yourself to get what it is that you need so you can continue to succeed in your career and do what it is you need to do. Meet your goals, become the person you are supposed to be, that God has placed you here on this earth to be, to the blessing that you're supposed to be to others, because we all know we're not blessed for ourselves, we are blessed for others. And so it's taking those deliberate steps to do those things. And so those are just a few of the quick, I guess I would say, tips that I have to help, and things for you to think about, honestly, as you try to, if you initiate that conversation, have that meeting to advocate for yourself. Make sure you have a plan in place. Make sure that you've written things down so that you can say all the things that you need to say. Make sure that you're being level-headed and not going in with emotion, because that's a big one as well. Don't have these conversations while you're angry or upset or any of that, because then they're hearing emotion and not the words that are coming out of your mouth. So make sure that you have that plan in place and ready to have that conversation, and then be ready for the no. But if you receive a no or even a not right now, all right, let's put some accountability in place. When is a good time to follow up? Is it 3 months? Is it next week? And what are some things that you need to see when we do have this follow up so that I can get a yes and we're not continuing to have this same conversation? Again, you have the right to ask for these things. Your career is important. Your progress is important. And there is no man, and man in general, so meaning man or woman, there is no person who can stop you from being who God called you to be. The only person that can stop you from being who you were meant to be is you. And don't let your fear of speaking up, fear of public opinion, fear of being ridiculed keep you from who you were called to be. And so I always like to close up or at least reference a scripture just to support what it is that I'm saying. So you know this doesn't come from Sharika. 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. So that means being courageous in those situations where we would normally choose fear. That means letting go of cowardice, timidity. I think I said that word right. Timidity, and having a sound mind. Putting your plan into place, being confident in that plan that you've put into place, knowing that these are the things that I've accomplished. I've earned this, I've worked for this, and I deserve this. And having self control and being able to have that conversation. Because the last thing you want is for that person to say that they don't agree with you because of, oh, you're being emotional or completely missing the message that you're trying to relay because anger is speaking higher or louder than the words actually coming out of your mouth. So, again, create your plan, write it down if you need to, rehearse it if you need to. Make sure that you're clear, that you're level headed. Remember that you are in control. No one, no person can take anything from you that God has allowed, has approved for you to have. And understand that with God, all things are possible. And because you are created in the image of God, all things are possible for you. Until next time, bye.